The sentence of exile. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with light, yet the atmosphere inside was heavy. Thousands of delegates sat in curved rows, their faces tense and their voices sharp. Above them, banners of hundreds of alien civilizations swayed in the artificial breeze. It was supposed to be a place of peace and unity, but on that day, it became a place of judgment. At the center, a holographic image of Earth floated above the polished floor. Blue oceans and green continents shone under the light. A world young compared to others, yet a world already feared. Whispers moved through the chamber like a storm. The name of humanity was on every tongue. The council speaker, an elder from the Vayari species, struck his staff on the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. Silence fell, his eyes sharp and cold, turned toward the projection of Earth. "This species," he said, his voice trembling with authority, "has risen too fast. They expand without limits. They fight wars like fire. They challenge laws that have stood for 10,000 years. Humanity is dangerous. They must be cast out." Some alien leaders nodded with grim agreement. They had seen humans adapt to worlds others could not survive on. They had seen human fleets grow stronger in only a few generations. To them, humanity was a threat to the balance they had carefully guarded for ages. But not all were in agreement. A few voices rose in protest. A reptilian elder from the Rokar stood tall, his scales glimmering under the light. "Humans are fierce, yes, but they are also builders. They brought trade, they brought medicine. They defended smaller races against pirates. Is fear reason enough for exile?" he asked. His words hung in the air, but they were drowned by a wave of anger. The hall exploded with shouts. Some demanded exile, some demanded war. The noise was deafening in the center. The speaker raised his staff again. The chamber obeyed. "The vote shall be taken," he declared, "and let the stars themselves be witness." One by one, the delegates raised their hands. Lights above their seats turned green for exile. Red for mercy, green after green began to glow. The numbers grew heavier with every second until at last the count was finished. Humanity was exiled. The chamber fell silent. The words were carved into history. From this day forth, humanity is banished from the council. No trade, no alliance, no seat among the stars. The speaker's voice carried no pity, only judgment. On Earth, the news spread like fire. Crowds gathered in cities, staring at giant screens. Children asked why the stars had turned against them. Soldiers clenched their fists. Leaders stood grim and silent. In every corner of the planet, people felt the sting of betrayal, but humanity did not cry. They did not beg. Instead, a different flame rose in their hearts. Families spoke in whispers. Workers in factories shared quiet vows. Commanders in bases swore to one another, "If they deny us a seat, we will build a throne." In a quiet room deep under the mountains, the leaders of Earth gathered. The air was tense, yet their voices carried a steel edge. "They fear us because we grow," one said. "They fear us because we are different," another answered. Then the oldest among them spoke, his voice calm but burning with resolve. "They will learn one truth. Humanity does not break. Humanity builds. They have given us exile, but we will turn exile into empire." The vow spread faster than any fleet. It spread from Earth to Mars, from Luna to the outer colonies. Workers, scientists, soldiers, and even children carried it in their hearts. They had lost the council, but they had not lost themselves in the Galactic Chamber. The delegates thought the matter was finished. They thought humanity would fade. They thought Earth would bend under the weight of isolation. But they were wrong. In the silence of Earth's night skies, where stars shimmered above oceans and deserts, men and women looked upward. They did not see banishment. They saw destiny. In their eyes, the stars did not belong to the council. The stars belonged to those who dared to reach them, and so, the sentence of exile was written in the books of the council. But on Earth, the same sentence was written in fire upon the hearts of humanity. The galaxy had turned its back on mankind, but mankind had already decided. They would not kneel, they would not fade. If no throne was offered, they would build one among the stars. The broken chains exile was meant to be a punishment, but for humanity it became a challenge. The Galactic Council believed Earth would crumble without trade, without allies, without the open lanes of the stars. They thought humanity would bow its head, beg for forgiveness, and remain forever small. They had no idea what they had awakened. The first weeks of exile were dark. Cargo ships were turned away at alien ports. Colonies on Mars and Luna received no supplies. Earth's communication networks were cut from the Council grids. Even medicine that once flowed from alien factories stopped arriving. On the surface, it looked like humanity was being strangled. Yet behind closed doors, something else was happening. In the underground factories of Earth, machines roared to life. Old industries that had been silent for decades began to glow again. Workers who once assembled simple goods now turned their hands to building engines, armor, and weapons. Engineers worked in silence, but their silence carried power. They were no longer designing for permission. They were designing for survival. On the colonies, hunger and fear turned into determination. On Mars, families came together to build farms under domes of glass and steel. On Luna, miners dug deeper, creating hidden vaults filled with resources. Every hardship became a lesson. Every wound became a scar of strength. The Council had cut the chains, but instead of leaving humanity broken, it left them free. The Council sent patrols to monitor humanity, hoping to find weakness. What they found instead were defenses rising like walls, orbital platforms armed with weapons of strange new design, fleets of small but fast ships that never appeared on official charts. Human scientists had turned to old secrets, to theories the Council once banned. They built engines that could bend light, shields that could twist energy, weapons that defied the limits of alien knowledge. The Council's spies reported strange whispers. They spoke of hidden shipyards and asteroid fields, of great stations buried beneath the ice of Europa, of experiments carried out in silence beyond Neptune. Most in the Council laughed. They thought humans were desperate, clinging to myths. But a few old races felt a shadow in their hearts. They remembered how quickly humanity had risen once before, and they feared it would happen again. Inside Earth's command halls, the leaders no longer spoke of survival. They spoke of destiny. They gathered generals, scientists, and dreamers into one circle. "The galaxy wants us on our knees," one leader said, "but we will rise higher than ever before." Another stood and raised a hand toward the stars. "Exile is no chain, exile is freedom. Now we answer only to ourselves." The people believed these words. In every city and every colony, humanity grew quiet but stronger. Farmers fed more mouths, soldiers trained harder, and shipbuilders worked longer hours. No council order told them to stop. No alien law told them what they could not do. For the first time in history, humanity was truly unchained. And with freedom came boldness. Old rivalries on Earth began to fade. Nations that once argued over borders now shared resources. Engineers from different continents worked side by side. Soldiers trained under one banner. The exile had united them in a way no treaty ever could. One night under the endless black sky of Mars, a group of young colonists stood looking up at the stars. They were not afraid, they were not broken, they were filled with fire. "They think they punished us," one whispered. "But they have only made us stronger." The others nodded. For them, the word exile no longer meant shame. It meant freedom. Across the galaxy, alien traders spoke in hushed voices. They heard rumors of ships built in secret, of weapons never seen before. Some even claimed that humans had discovered how to bend the very rules of war. The Council dismissed these whispers. They believed humanity was still weak, still trapped. But the truth was simple. Humanity's chains had already shattered. And so the years of exile turned into years of growth. The Council saw only silence, but behind that silence was thunder. It was the sound of a people rising, of a species no longer bound by fear. Humanity was not fading. Humanity was not kneeling, humanity was building. The chains were broken, and once broken, they could never be placed again. The Council had exiled humanity, but in doing so, they had unleashed something far greater. From the deserts of Earth to the red plains of Mars, from the icy moons to the hidden stations in deep space, a vow spread like fire. We are free, and we will build our throne among the stars. The silent armada. For decades, the galaxy believed humanity had gone silent. The Council thought their punishment had broken Earth. To outsiders, humanity seemed quiet, almost invisible. No fleets challenged the trade lanes. No colonies asked for recognition. The Council convinced itself that humanity had been humbled. But beneath the quiet surface, something else was happening. Far from prying eyes, hidden in the dark corners of space, humanity was building. In the asteroid belts between Mars and Jupiter, Massive caverns were carved out inside them. Machines thundered day and night. Engineers worked in secret, welding steel, forging engines, testing weapons. Above the icy moon of Europa, a station floated under a cloak of shadow. Its docks stretched for miles, and in those docks ships were born. These were not the fragile ships the Council remembered. They were different. Sleek hulls of black metal absorbed the light of distant stars. Their engines glowed with a power never seen before. They carried weapons that hummed with energy so intense it seemed alive. Every ship was a blade, and together they were a storm. Humanity was not just building a fleet. They were building an armada. The first of these warships was named Throne of Earth. It was vast, a moving fortress, and its core pulsed like the heart of a beast. When it launched from the hidden docks, the crew stood in silence, not in fear, but in pride. They knew they were no longer part of a broken people. They were the edge of something greater. The throne was followed by others, ships called Defiance, Destiny, Iron Dawn, and Silent Star. Each name carried a message. Each message was a promise. The galaxy did not know. The Council still slept in arrogance, believing exile had erased humanity. But whispers began to spread. Traders spoke of strange sightings near empty sectors. Wrecks of pirate ships shattered in ways no Council weapon could achieve. Some said they saw black shapes gliding across the void, moving like shadows that swallowed light. At first, these stories were dismissed as myths. Yet more stories followed, and myths began to feel like warnings. On Earth, in hidden command halls, leaders gathered around glowing maps of the stars. They watched as their secret fleet grew stronger. Generals nodded with quiet satisfaction. Scientists smiled with tired faces. Soldiers trained in silence. Each part of humanity's plan was falling into place. They did not shout, they did not boast, they simply prepared. The Council's spies tried to uncover the truth, but they found nothing. Human networks were closed. Human worlds were guarded, every attempt ended in silence. It was as if the species had become invisible. And that was the greatest deception of all. Humanity wanted the galaxy to believe they were weak, all while they built weapons strong enough to shatter empires. One night in the hidden station above Europa, a young pilot walked across the dock. His hand touched the black metal of a new ship. It was still nameless, still waiting, he whispered. "You are our answer." His voice was quiet, but his words carried the weight of every exile. Behind him, rows of ships stretched into the dark. More than he could count, he smiled because he knew. Humanity was no longer waiting. Humanity was rising. Then came the first test. A Council patrol ship wandered too close to the asteroid belt. The humans could have hidden, could have stayed silent. But the time for silence was ending. The Silent Star moved from the shadows. Its cannons lit the void with fire. In seconds, the patrol ship was torn apart, not by chaos, but by precision. The wreckage floated in silence, and the human ship vanished again. The Council received the report in disbelief. They claimed it was an accident. They said it was pirates. They said it was impossible. But deep inside, they knew something was stirring, something they thought they had destroyed. Humanity's silence was no longer safety. It was thunder waiting to strike back on Earth. The leaders watched the stars. Their fleets were ready, their people united. They no longer feared exile. They had turned exile into strength. Their armada was silent, but not for long soon. The galaxy would see them again. Not as beggars, not as outcasts, but as builders of a throne. The silent armada grew day by day. No alien eyes could count its numbers. No Council fleet could stop its rise. It was the shadow behind the stars. The storm before the war, humanity had been cast out. But now they were preparing to return. And when they returned, it would not be with empty hands. It would be with fire, steel, and the throne they had forged in exile. The galaxy thought humanity was silent, but the silence was only the beginning. The first clash, the Council patrol ship drifted through the emptiness of Sector 12. Its crew was bored. Their scanners showed nothing. Their charts marked the sector as dead space. For years, these patrols had been routine, a way to show authority rather than a way to fight. The officers laughed and drank bitter alien brew, mocking the idea that humans could ever rise again. But then the silence changed. A faint signal blinked on their screens. At first weak, then steady, the captain frowned. Leaning closer, it was a ship. But it was no design he recognized. Its shape was sleek, sharp, like a blade carved from the dark. Its engines glowed with an energy too steady, too powerful. The captain ordered the crew to hail it, but no answer came. The alien ship drifted closer. Silent as a shadow, the patrol crew began to laugh again. Humans, one of them sneered, so they still build toys. They armed their cannons, confident that one blast would scatter the intruder into dust. But before their weapons could fire, the black ship moved. Its cannons erupted with light. Beams sharper than lightning tore across the void. The alien patrol's shields flared once, then shattered like glass in moments. The patrol ship was crippled, its hull torn apart. Inside the council chamber, the news spread like fire. The patrol had sent fragments of a message before it was destroyed. The words echoed through the chamber. Unknown vessel. Human design. Overwhelming firepower. Silence followed. Some delegates scoffed. Impossible, they said. Humans cannot build such ships. Others felt a chill deep in their bones. Meanwhile, in the hidden command halls of Earth, the leaders watched the battle report in silence. Generals leaned forward as the images replayed. The black ship's strike had been precise, cold, unstoppable. The first cut has been made, one of them said quietly. A murmur spread through the room. Humanity had drawn blood across the colonies. Whispers turned into pride. On Mars, miners paused to watch secret broadcasts of the battle. On Luna, soldiers raised their fists in silence. Children repeated the story as if it were legend. For the first time in decades, humanity had struck back. Not in defense, but in defiance. The council scrambled, they sent more patrols. But the silent armada did not wait. Hidden fleets moved from the asteroid belts, from Europa, from stations no alien had ever mapped. They struck with speed, vanishing before fleets could gather. For every alien patrol destroyed, a whisper spread louder. The humans are back. The council's arrogance began to crack. Reports arrived daily. Ships gone, stations destroyed, routes lost. No one could track the human fleet. They moved like ghosts, their black hulls blending with the dark. Every attack was a reminder that humanity had not only survived, they had evolved inside the council chamber. Anger erupted. Some demanded war, others demanded peace. The speaker struck his staff and shouted, "This is rebellion, and it must be crushed." But even as he spoke, the delegates glanced nervously at one another. If the humans had truly built fleets of this power, could the council even crush them? On Earth, preparations quickened. Shipyards worked without pause. Families volunteered their children for the fleets. Pilots trained in simulators until their eyes burned. Scientists whispered of weapons still untested, weapons that could tear stars themselves. Humanity was not afraid, humanity was hungry. The first clash had not been a battle. It had been a message, and the message was simple. Humanity would not kneel. Humanity would not vanish. They had been cast out. But they had returned with fire. In the deep silence of space, the throne of Earth floated like a shadow. Its commander stood at the observation deck, watching the stars. "They wanted us silent," he murmured. "Now let them hear our voice." In behind him, hundreds of ships waited, engines glowing, weapons ready. The council had exiled humanity to break them. Instead, they had forced humanity to rise higher. And now the first clash was only the beginning. The storm was coming. The galaxy had no idea how strong the storm would be. The throne ascends. The galaxy no longer whispered about humanity. It shouted in fear. Every week brought reports of vanished patrols. Shattered stations and trade routes burned into silence. What began as shadows in the dark had grown into a storm. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was building. In the far reaches of space, abandoned stations floated in silence. They were old outposts, left behind when richer worlds called their people home. Humanity claimed them one by one. Engineers flooded their halls, soldiers stood guard, and banners of blue and white unfurled. The stations that had once been empty became strongholds. Each fortress was a tooth in a growing jaw of steel. The council sent fleets to drive them out, but the fleets did not return. The human armada struck like lightning, fast, precise, unstoppable. For every ship the council lost, humanity gained ground. It was not a war of survival anymore. It was a war of conquest. Humanity was no longer a victim. Humanity was becoming a power. On a hidden world beyond the council's charts, a new city rose. Its towers gleamed with light. Its streets rang with voices of colonists. At its heart stood something greater. A colossal structure carved of steel and crystal. Shaped like a throne, it was not just a monument. It was a declaration. Humanity had been denied a seat at the council. So they had built a throne higher than any council chamber. The first gathering on this new world was unlike anything in human history. Leaders from Earth, Mars, Luna, and the outer colonies stood together on the steps of the throne. Soldiers in black armor saluted. Children waved banners, engineers wept with pride. The oldest of Earth's leaders stepped forward. His voice carried across the crowd. We were banished. But we did not break, we were silenced. But we found our voice, look around you. This is our answer. We do not beg for a seat, we build a throne, the crowd roared. And the roar carried through the stars. Broadcasts of the speech reached colonies and stations hidden across the void. It was not only humans who listened. Smaller alien species, those who had long suffered under the council's shadow, heard the words too. They whispered to each other. Perhaps the humans are not only dangerous, perhaps they are the hope we need. Meanwhile, the council trembled. Reports filled their chambers. Human fleets had seized asteroid mines, orbital stations, and even entire moons. Their technology was advancing faster than ever. Their fleets were multiplying, and worst of all, smaller alien nations were beginning to look to humanity as a protector. In one council session, a delegate shouted, "We should have destroyed them when we had the chance." Another whispered, "Perhaps now it is too late." The speaker struck his staff, but even his voice wavered. Humanity was no longer an outcast. Humanity was a rising empire. On the hidden throne world, the fleets gathered. Hundreds of black ships stood in orbit, their hulls gleaming with power. From the smallest frigate to the massive throne of Earth, they formed a circle around the new capital, like guardians protecting their king. From orbit, the throne itself shone like fire, its reflection glowing across the void. Pilots spoke to each other in quiet pride. "We are not soldiers of exile anymore. We are soldiers of the throne." Engineers carved the words into walls. "From chains we build." Children recited them like prayer. The spirit of humanity had shifted. They were no longer fighting only to survive. They were fighting to rule. The galaxy watched, stunned. The council had tried to erase humanity, but instead, they had given birth to something greater. Humanity was not crawling back to beg for forgiveness. Humanity was rising with steel in its hands, and a throne under its feet. And as the fleets prepared, as stations turned into fortresses, one truth became clear. The age of exile was over. The age of the throne had begun. The return to the council. The Galactic Council chamber had not changed. Its high ceiling still shone with starlight. Its banners still displayed the symbols of hundreds of species. Delegates still sat in curved rows, their voices loud and filled with arrogance. But on that day, beneath all the color and noise, there was fear, for news had reached them. Humanity had risen. Reports filled the chamber. Patrol fleets destroyed. Stations lost. Smaller species abandoning the council to seek protection under humanity. The speaker struck his staff, his voice shaking. "We must remind them they are exiles, they are nothing without us." But even as he spoke, his words rang hollow. His eyes shifted nervously to the chamber doors, as if expecting them to open, and then they did. The vast doors creaked open and silence fell. A single human walked into the chamber. He wore no golden crown, no shimmering robe, only the black uniform of the fleets. His boots echoed against the polished floor. Each step was steady, heavy, unafraid. Behind him, a hologram shimmered to life. It showed the stars filled with black ships, thousands of them orbiting worlds, guarding stations, stretching farther than the eye could see. The delegates froze, some gasped, some whispered, others lowered their eyes. The human's gaze swept across the chamber. Calm but sharp, he stopped at the center, where years ago humanity had been cast out. His voice was steady, his words simple. "You banished us. You thought exile would break us, but we are still here." The chamber trembled with unease. A delegate rose and shouted, "You defy the council? You bring war." The human turned his head slowly. "No," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "We bring truth. You claimed we had no place at your table, so we built a throne higher than yours." The hologram above him shifted. It showed the new throne world, shining with towers and fleets. It was not a myth, not a whisper, it was real. The delegates stared in silence, some with fear, some with awe. The speaker struck his staff again, but this time the sound no longer echoed with power. "You cannot threaten us," he said, but his voice cracked. The human stepped closer. His eyes met the speaker's. "We are not here to threaten. We are here to remind you. Humanity does not kneel, gasps filled the chamber. The words were sharp as blades, no one dared to answer. A few delegates who had once mocked humanity now lowered their eyes in shame. Others whispered of alliance, of peace, of survival. The chamber that once had roared against humanity now sat in silence. Far above the council world, the Black Armada waited. From orbit, the ships hung like a storm ready to fall. Their weapons glowed faintly. Their engines pulsed with light. Every delegate knew, with one command, the chamber itself could be reduced to ash. But the command never came. The human envoy raised his head. We did not come to destroy, we did not come to beg. We came to show you what exile has made of us. He turned toward the hologram once more. The fleet shimmered, the throne world burned with light. We are not exiles anymore, we are rulers of our destiny, and we will never again ask for your permission. With that, he turned and walked back through the chamber doors. His steps echoed again. Each step was a reminder. Each step was a promise. Humanity had returned, not as broken wanderers, but as builders of empires. When the doors closed behind him, the chamber erupted. Some shouted for war. Others begged for peace. The speaker slumped into his seat. His staff trembling in his hands, he whispered words no one thought he would ever say. We may have created something greater than us all. And above them, beyond the clouds, the human fleets darkened the stars, waiting, silent, ready. The council had seen their return, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The throne among the stars, the galaxy had seen humanity rise from silence. It had seen their fleets strike with precision. It had watched stations fall and moons turn into fortresses. But now the galaxy would see something greater. Humanity no longer fought only to survive. They fought to rule on the hidden throne world. The day of declaration had come. The skies above were filled with black ships. From the smallest frigates to the massive flagships, they hung in orbit like a crown of steel around the planet. Their engines pulsed with steady light. Their weapons glimmered with silent fire. From orbit, the throne itself could be seen, a vast structure of crystal and steel rising from the heart of the new capital. It glowed brighter than any council hall, higher than any alien monument. Crowds filled the streets. Colonists from Mars, workers from Luna, miners from the outer belt, children born in the void, all stood shoulder to shoulder. Their banners rose into the sky. Their voices thundered as one. Humanity had come together as it never had before. The exile that was meant to divide them had united them. At the steps of the great throne, the leaders of Earth and its colonies gathered. Soldiers in black armor lined the plaza, their faces calm and proud. Engineers and scientists stood beside them, their hands scarred from building the armada. Families held their children high so they could see the moment that would mark history. The oldest of the leaders stepped forward. His voice carried across the crowd, and through transmissions it carried across the stars. They cast us out, he said. They denied us a seat among them. They thought we would vanish. They thought we would kneel. But look at us now. His arm rose toward the fleets above. We are not broken. We are not exiles. We are builders of destiny. The crowd roared, their voices shaking the very air. Above them, the fleets shifted in formation, forming the shape of a circle around the world. A crown of ships in the center of that crown. The throne of Earth glimmered like fire. Its name carried across every transmission, a symbol of what humanity had become. Across the galaxy, billions watched. Some watched with fear. Council races who had once mocked humanity now trembled. They saw not a species begging for a place, but a species declaring an empire. Others watched with hope. Smaller races who had long suffered under the arrogance of the council whispered, "Perhaps this is the power we needed. Perhaps humanity will protect us." The leader's voice grew stronger. "We do not ask for a seat at their table. We do not need their counsel. We have built our throne, and from this throne we will shape the stars. We will protect our own. We will defend the weak, and we will never again kneel." Every human in the crowd raised their voices in answer. From the deserts of Earth to the ice of Europa, from the domes of Mars to the stations in deep space, one vow was spoken. Never again. In the council chamber far away, the speaker listened to the transmission in silence. His staff shook in his hands. Around him, delegates whispered. Some wanted war, others wanted peace, but all of them knew the truth. Humanity was no longer theirs to judge. Humanity had risen beyond them. The fleets above the throne world began to move, not in war but in unity. Ships glided into position, creating lines of light across the dark void. It was a display of power, a reminder to all who watched. Humanity's silence was over. Humanity had spoken, and so the exile ended. The story of chains and punishment had become the story of thrones and power. Humanity had been banished, but they had turned banishment into destiny. They had been denied, but they had built their own empire. The galaxy would never forget the day the black fleets crowned the skies. The day the throne of humanity shone brighter than any council banner. The day exile became empire. Humanity had written their truth among the stars, and the truth was simple. Humanity would never kneel. Humanity would never fade. Humanity had built its throne among the stars, and from that throne, they would shape the future of the galaxy,